Valentine's Day, a time of love, romance, and sweet memories. But not all love stories have happy endings. Some end in terror, in nightmares that never fade. Tonight, I bring you 3 horrifying true tales that prove love can sometimes be deadly. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and let's begin. Sarah had been dating James for nearly a year when Valentine's Day arrived. Excited, she booked them a cozy weekend getaway at a secluded cabin in the woods. Romantic, right? But the moment they arrived, she felt off. The cabin was old, the air thick with an odd smell. The caretaker, an older man with deep, sunken eyes, handed them the key without saying a word. That night, after a romantic dinner, Sarah stepped outside to grab firewood. When she returned, James was gone. His phone was on the table, his jacket still hanging by the door. At first, she thought it was a joke, but as the hours passed and a snowstorm rolled in, panic set in. Then she heard it. A slow, deliberate knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Sarah held her breath, peering through the peephole. Nothing. The knocking continued, louder this time. She grabbed her phone and called the police. They arrived an hour later and searched the cabin. No James, no footprints in the fresh snow. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The next morning, the police reviewed the cabin's security footage. Sarah watched, her heart pounding. The footage showed James sitting at the table. At exactly 10:13 p.m., he suddenly stiffened, his eyes rolling back. He stood, walked to the door, and opened it. There was no one there. He walked into the night and never returned. They never found him. To this day, the case remains open, and the footage haunts Sarah's nightmares. Lisa had met Eric on a dating app. They had talked for weeks, and Valentine's Day seemed like the perfect time for their first date. He took her to a high-end restaurant, paid for everything, and charmed her with his wit. But something felt off. His eyes never left her, and every time she looked away, she swore she saw his smile twitch. He spoke about strange topics, how souls could be trapped, how love should be eternal. After dinner, he insisted on walking her home. She declined, but he followed her anyway, staying just a few feet behind. When she confronted him, he simply said, "I just want to make sure you get home safely." Nervous, Lisa rushed inside her apartment, locking the door. Her phone buzzed. A message from Eric. "You forgot to invite me in." Her stomach dropped. She never told him her address. Panicked, she blocked his number and turned off the lights. But as she lay in bed, she noticed something outside her window. A silhouette standing across the street, staring up at her. She barely slept, but when she woke up the next morning, the figure was gone. Feeling relieved, she checked her phone. A new message. "Good morning, love. You looked beautiful while you slept." The police never found him, but every Valentine's Day she gets a single text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "Still watching you." Mark was a hopeless romantic. He had been planning for weeks to surprise his girlfriend, Emily, with the perfect Valentine's Day gift. While browsing an antique shop, he found an old heart-shaped locket. The owner, a frail woman, hesitated before selling it to him. "That locket belonged to someone who lost their love in a terrible way," she whispered. "Be careful with it." Mark dismissed it as superstition and bought the locket anyway. That night, he gave it to Emily over dinner. She opened it, revealing a tiny photo inside, a faded black and white picture of a man and woman, both smiling. But as she stared at it, her expression changed. "Mark, this woman looks exactly like me." Mark laughed it off, but when Emily turned the locket over, they saw something scratched into the metal. "Forever yours, even in death." That night, Emily woke up screaming. She swore she had seen a shadow standing over their bed, whispering her name. The next morning, she was gone. Mark searched everywhere, but the only thing left behind was the locket, resting on her pillow. The old photo was gone, replaced by a new one. It was a picture of Mark, and beside him, Emily, smiling. Except the Emily in the photo wasn't the Emily he knew. Her eyes were hollow, and she wasn't smiling at all. Love is a beautiful thing, but sometimes love is eternal in the worst possible way.